Censorship and the Futility of Article 35, Free Speech in China and its Impact on Education. So, what is Article 35 and why is it important to education in China? Article 35 is part of the Constitution of the People's Republic of China, the supreme law, adopted December 4th, 1982, and it supersedes the 54, 75, and 78 versions of the Chinese Constitution. Why it's important is because it promises the right to freedom of speech in China, which is not something that China is known for. In fact, it's known for quite the opposite. So, how does it get around the supreme law? Well, it uses two tactics, two clauses. Subversion of state power, which is really anyone that criticizes the current government. They can be locked away. And then there's also the protection of state secrets. So you'll notice that the first four bullet points of the state secrets on this slide are things that you might see really for any government. However, look at the last four: culture, education, hygiene, meteorological forecasts. While also really true things that are considered state secrets here, they illustrate the broad nature of these clauses and how they are in fact used as a catch-all to really target and imprison political activists, human rights campaigners, and dissidents. So what does censorship in education look like in China? Well, the big one that is China is known for, with the Great Firewall of China and such, is internet censorship. One thing that is done online are these monitoring and censorship factories that employ millions of people. And basically, their job is to surf the internet and to post propaganda, but then also to report and censor posts that are deemed critical of the government or things that shouldn't be talked about. Banning Western textbooks and resources from the classroom, another way of controlling information and who it gets to from outside of China. But the big one that I wanted to talk about today was this reporting from students and faculty and staff. And essentially, students are used as spies for the government, for public universities in China. And why that's important is, well, what they're looking for is for anyone that doesn't walk the party line. As of right now, it's estimated that Xi Jinping, who is the leader of the government here in China, has approximately, he's asked for one student to serve as a spy for each classroom. And this is, something that's not uncommon in China's history. During the Cultural Revolution in the 60s and 70s, academics and people with ties to the West were deemed class enemies and were persecuted. Young people were called upon to spy and denounce teachers then, and so it's not unusual that it's being used again now. Some students take this further than just like spying on their teachers in class and actually go further, keeping an eye on their private life, including tastes in books and movies. Here are some examples of modern day censorship in education. Again, these are things that are really targeted. This tactic of student spies in classrooms is really used for university public teachers here. And so, the general thing is they do something wrong, they're reported, and then fired. The last one is a little bit interesting, though. Mr. Yu, who spoke, commented on the Chinese dream and calling it a delusion and fantasy. He was sort of harassed by his students. They called him extreme and anti-communist, which led to the university installing a camera in his classroom and threatening him that if he spoke, it would be easy to find evidence to use against him. So eventually he's fired and relocates to New York because of this sort of mob mentality that was formed around him. So, and one thing he said about the situation in a New York Times article, he was quoted as saying, "Xi's goal is to reintroduce the element of self-censorship so that people start to think twice about speaking." And that's the big goal here and why teachers are targeted in China, because China doesn't care if a single person is to criticize the government, but it's this idea of any threat of collective action and teaching large amounts of people. Teachers are in this authoritative position and are opinion shapers, and so it's deemed as threatening. So, just a quick reflection on strengths and weaknesses here. Um, the strength, I suppose, if you are a foreign educator, meaning you are coming from outside of China, is that you're going to get paid a lot to work here. One, because of the economy itself, but also because, like my school, for instance, will pay teachers lots of money because they feel they need to, because people don't necessarily want to relocate to a country that has human rights issues and censorship issues. Um, there are a ton of weaknesses if, as an educator when working in China and the censorship here, from lack of resources, as mentioned before, but then also from restricted internet usage and limited access to information, but then also incredibly slow internet that causes problems with, say, attending an online class. um, so yeah, there are a myriad of things, and another thing is the censorship here and the threat of it is also creates a bit of paranoia and fear within the teaching community here, such as this current flu outbreak, and also the unrest in HK makes people quite uncomfortable. So yeah, it's. I mean, if you were to look at the strengths and weaknesses of it, that's what it is, and it's certainly something I deal with on a daily basis. So yeah, it's uncomfortable, and it's not something I truly enjoy, to be honest with you. Here are my sources. You're welcome to dive into them. I will post them on the website as well. If you have any questions or want to talk more about it, I'm happy to. Thanks for watching.